The single best way to kickstart evangelism in your church is, well, actually, let's start with the problem. Okay, we'll start with the challenge, right? One of the challenges is that only 1% of pastors have said, according to Barna, that their church is very effective at evangelism. And there's another study that shows that only 1% of your congregation say, hey, I've got the gift of evangelism. So if 1% of churches say that they're great at evangelism and another 1% of your congregation is like, yeah, and I have the gift of evangelism, what do you do? Like, do you just throw in the towel? Do you consign your church to decline? Do you settle for transfer growth? What do you do? Well, actually, none of the above. Now, let's look at the stats. According to Barna, 1% of pastors say their church is very effective at evangelism, and it is true, only 1% of Christians say they have the spiritual gift of evangelism. Now, maybe people don't know that they have the gift when they have the gift. I mean, you can argue with the stats, but it's kind of bleak. And if you look through the American church on a Sunday morning, you would see this play out in congregation after congregation. Most people don't go to church, don't share their faith, and churches are struggling. But it doesn't have to be that way. So here's how you can kickstart evangelism at your church. Before we get to the single best way to kickstart evangelism, here's a couple things that are going to help right off the bat. A good place to begin is to stop making evangelism the pastor's job. Okay, a lot of pastors are like, well, I went to seminary, I'll do the faith sharing, I'll try to create a great weekend experience. And they do that. You should have a great weekend experience. But the church, we kind of professionalize the clergy, right? So I know in the Reformation, we're like, no, ministry belongs to the priesthood of all believers. But what's happened over the last, 100 years or so is that people go, well, you're the pastor, so you're responsible for reaching people. And we've kind of absolved as a congregation saying, yeah, we don't have to do that, right? So another, one of the things you can do as a pastor is you can start casting vision saying, you know what, evangelism belongs to all of us. And some of you actually have that spiritual gift, but more of you have the gift of hospitality. You can be hospitable. You can invite to a great weekend experience like that. But the idea here is you don't want to make it the pastor's job. And the way that you do that is by educating the congregation through your messages to say, hey, this belongs to all of us. So, second thing you can do is some people actually have the spiritual gift of evangelism. Now, I'll quibble with that 1% stat. I think a lot of people don't know their spiritual gift. So let's say it's 10%. I don't know. But some people you're going to find are really great inviters. They, a lot of people, they go into a social situation. They don't want to talk about their faith. They don't want to talk. They want to invite people to church. It's just uncomfortable for them. Now, that doesn't let them off the hook. Other people walk into the same room and they're like, hey, how you doing? Oh yeah, you know what? My faith is really important to me. You should come to our church. And they're totally not awkward about it. Those people have the spiritual gift of evangelism. I mean, they can lead people to Christ. They can pray with them. They're not intimidated by it. Some people have the spiritual gift of hospitality, others teaching, others admin. Some people have the spiritual gift of evangelism. So you want to find those people, you want to fuel it. But all that said, shifting it off the pastor, finding people who have the spiritual gift of evangelism, that is still not the number one way to do it. The single best way to kickstart evangelism at your church is, are you ready? Have new people invite new people. This is something that most pastors miss, okay? It's right under our nose, but the best inviters at your church, probably even a little bit better than the people with the spiritual gift of evangelism, I'll explain why in a minute, are new people. So what you want to do is you want to encourage new people to invite other new people. This is something we ignore, but my guess is you probably had at least one new person in your church over the last week, maybe month, maybe year. That's sort of an all skate now. Yeah, over the last year, a new person has come. All right, now here's what's so important. You've got people in your church who've been attending for years, some of them all of their life. You know what they've done if they've got the spiritual gift of evangelism is they probably tapped out their network. Like, they haven't moved every year. They've had the same neighbors for 5 or 6 years. And even if they've got the spiritual gift of evangelism, they're not going to knock on their neighbor's door and go, will you come to church with me this week? How about next week? How about the week after? right? Like at that point, you just become annoying. So they kind of tapped out their relational network. Now, never stop praying, never stop believing, never stop trusting. But a lot of us have networks that are a little bit static. Now, when new people come in, that changes because new people are the best inviters because they know a ton of other new people. They probably knew one person who went to your church, and now, everybody else that is affiliated with them is somebody that they're brand new to. So, and here's the reality. New is exciting. You tell people about new things you like. Like, think about how you behave, right? If you've read a book that's changed your perspective, what do? You say to people, well, you haven't read that book? Oh, you got to read that book this summer. Or maybe you find a new restaurant locally. You tell all your friends, right? Oh, we just discovered this amazing pizza place, this steakhouse. It's incredible. Some of you, you're evangelists unpaid for Chick-fil-A. I get it. Okay. You just love Chick-fil-A. You go out there. It's like Chick-fil-A sauce for the win. All right. So you're a natural evangelist, right? A productivity app. Maybe there's an app on your phone that you just love and you're like, what? You don't have that app? Or a podcast that you love, right? Not going to plug my podcast, but maybe you do. A TV show that you're binging right now that a lot of your friends haven't discovered. Or, you just got back from an incredible new country or resort. You came back from it and you're like, wow, that's incredible. You have to go there. So, we all have those things. When you discover something new, what do? You tell the people you care about. Now, the same thing's happening with your church or could happen with your church. New people discover it. They're excited and they start evangelizing, telling their friends about it. And soon you get the network effect. Okay. The network effect is when a new person comes in and they're attached to all of these people who don't go to your church. So they tell somebody and then another new person comes, but that new person is now connected with other new people and that multiplies the effect. You really get the network effect. That's multiplying. Now, that doesn't let your existing attenders off the hook. But what I'm saying is new people should invite new people. Now, I want to give you a final word because you're like, well, why isn't that happening? Okay. Don't just sit back and relax and hope this will work. What you need to do sometimes is you need to give new people permission to invite people to your church. You're like, wait, that's weird. We have a sign that says everybody's welcome. They can come whenever they want. Yeah. But here's the thing. If you're truly reaching unchurched people, they don't know that they are, quote, allowed to bring new people into the church, right? They think they've stumbled on a private club. If you joined a new organization, you might say, well, am I allowed to bring my friends or not? That is a perfectly legit question. And in a post-Christian world, people don't know. So I've had numerous conversations with people who pull me aside on a Sunday and they're like, hey, is it okay if we invite our friends to this church? Like, can you bring people to this next week? And you're like, yes, absolutely. But they don't know. So when you get around a new person, you just want to let them know, hey, it's okay to invite your new friends. You might even say that from the front, but you also want to cast that vision. So where does this leave us? Yep. Only 1% of people say they have the spiritual gift of evangelism, and 1% of churches say they're very effective at evangelism, but that doesn't let your church off the hook. It's every believer's responsibility to share his or her faith. But now you know the single best way to fuel evangelism at your church, which is to help new people invite new people. And when you do that and you pour fuel on that, you might start to see a lot of conversion growth. And now you know why. Hey, before you go, if you're curious about getting the best content on the internet, I do a weekly newsletter. Every Friday I send it out. It's called On the Rise. And I link to, well, sometimes videos like this, but also content for church leaders, curious things. You can check it out. Just subscribe for free at ontherisenewsletter.com or click the link below. Love to welcome you to that. But now you know the number one best way to kickstart evangelism at your church.